Learn from yesterday, live for today, hope for tomorrow. The important thing is not to stop questioning. First, we will address the question whether Python is a compiled or an interpreted language. The answer is both, as Python code undergoes compilation into bytecodes, which is then executed by the Python virtual machine through an interpreter. So the Python source code stores in machine as bytes. It converts back to the text using UTF-8 scheme for encoding and decoding. Once your code is passed, it is transformed into Python bytecode represented by set of 101 special instructions. These bytecodes are stored as a .pyc file in the PyCast subdirectory and executed by the Python virtual machine. An interpreter is a type of program that implements a process, virtual machine executing your code within the host operating system while providing a platform independent environment. So Python's virtual machine is a stack based, meaning it operates with a stack to execute the instruction. So in simple terms, when we run a Python code, it does not get directly translated into machine instruction executed by CPU. Instead, it is translated into bytecode, which is a low-level set of instructions that can be executed by a virtual machine. These bytecode execution on a virtual machine makes Python platform dependent. Python is considered an interpretive language, meaning that the code is executed line by line, and this interpretive nature makes it easier to test and debug because you don't need to compile the code. So in summary, Python is interpreted and the code is transformed into bytecodes for execution on a virtual machine. This under the hood process occurs even the simplest two-line Python code, while it's not essential for programmers to delve into the intricacies of Python's internal working. Having that knowledge can set you apart from others in the field. Network automation revolves around data manipulation, and we can arrange or structure this data using various data types in Python. These data types can be broadly classified into two categories: primitive and non-primitive. Primitive data types in Python can convert to other primitive types using built-in functions, given that the conversion results is valid true. So we can consider this primitive data types as integers, floats, complex, booleans, or we can say strings. On the other hand, non-primitive data types possess a unique quality known as nesting. Additionally, some non-primitive data types can be converted to other similar data types. A list can be transformed into a set or a tuple, but it cannot convert it into dictionary. So these non-primitive are having a unique quality you can consider as a kind of nesting, like list, tuple, and dictionaries. Hello friends, my name is Sabi, and in today's video we'll discuss about Python data types. And remember, Python data types are the building blocks of Python. Understanding these data types is crucial when using Python for network automation. For instance, a list can hold a tuple, dictionary, sets, or even another list as one or more of its elements. When a tuple exists within a list, we refer it as nested tuple. This principle applies to all four non-primitive data types. So when discussing Python data types, it is essential to grasp the data types serves as the fundamental building blocks of Python. So these data types are divided in four main categories. The first one is number data type, in which we have integers, float, complex. So integers used for whole numbers, positive numbers, and negative numbers. Float used for decimal values. Complex used for imaginary numbers. Sequence are ordered collections or array of similar or different data types that can be iterated through. String data types represents sequence of character enclosed in quotes. For example, sentence, statements, username, or password. Then we have list data type, which represent mutable arrays used to store order values. List can contain duplicate items, and we can change the list as well, which makes it as mutable. Tuple data type, similar to list, They store order values and can contain duplicate values as well. However, tuples are immutable, meaning they cannot be changed after creation. Then we have sets, the collections of the data types. Sets are the collection of unique and unordered elements. Dictionaries are widely used in Python, especially when working with APIs. They are an unordered collection of key value pairs. Then we have Boolean represent true or false value. They are used to evaluate expressions in your code. For example, a statement like while true, print hello world. While print hello world forever until the condition is no longer true. When many people first learn Python, they start with a simple print hello world statement, which teach them two things. So first one is how to print in Python and introduce them this string data type. Let's discuss about strings. String consists of a sequence of characters enclosed by matching opening and closing quotes. In our example, we have multiple print statements involving string data types. The first example demonstrates printing a string data type enclosed in a single quote representing router 1. It's important to note that we can use single quotes, double quotes, triple double quotes, and single triple quotes to represent strings. Using these quotes, they must match from the opening to the closing quotes. It's possible to nest quotes within each other. Strings in Python are commonly used to represent various information such as hostname, password, bank information, and they can be any length, limited only by the available memory on your system. If you see this example where I mention as I don't drink beer, which contains an apostrophe. To make Python recognize the single quotes inside our string, we need to nest them inside double quotes. So strings in Python are commonly used to represent various information such as hostname, password, bank account details, routing informations, and IP addresses. So they can be of any length, limited only by available memory on your system. Remember always that the opening and the closing quotes must match correctly in the strings. When the quotes does not match, Python raises an error. For example, single quotes and trailing double quotes would result in failure. So the string type in Python is called string. So in order to know what kind of data type it is, we have a type built-in feature, type hostname. So it's a data type as string. So now here's a question. We reference several different ways that we can represent the string data types in Python. So which one do we use in our Python? So Python has a style guide known as PEP8, which we discussed in our first Python introduction video. So PEP8 is for the style guide. PEP9 recommends that the whichever quotes you start with in your code, you should stick to that method throughout your code. If you start using single quote in your string, each time you use a string, you should use single quotes only. So in this tutorial, we will explore how to use string data types in Python. Strings in Python are a sequence of characters enclosed by matching opening and closing quotes. Let's examine some print statements. First print statement shows the single quotes string data types containing router 1. In Python, we can use single quotes, double quotes, triple double quotes, or single triple quotes to represent a string data type. So when using quotes, they must match from the opening to the closing quotes. These strings can be of any length, limited only the amount of memory available on our system. So for example, quotes can be nested inside one another. For example, to handle an apostrophe within a string like I don't drink beer, you need to nest the single quote inside a double quote. If the opening and the closing quote do not match in Python, it will raise a syntax error. For example, leading single quotes and ending with double quote will cause an error. So strings are commonly used to represent various pieces of information such as host name, password, bank account details, routing information, IP addresses, and they can be any length, limited only by amount of memory available on your system. The string data type in Python is called string, str. To determine the type of object you use, the built-in function that we use is type parenthesis, and within the type parenthesis, if you put the variable as username, it will give you as str, which represents string. It is essential to follow a consistent style in your code. Python's style guide PEP 8 recommends using the same type of quotes throughout your code. If you start using single quotes from string representation, stick to using single quote whenever you deal with strings in your code. Following PEP 8 guidelines help maintain code consistency and readability. So now that we have explored various ways to represent strings, we make sure to stick to the chosen style throughout your Python code. This practice will make your code more organized and easier to understand. Strings are the sequence of characters that are surrounded by quotes. So how we can manipulate strings to do things like making the entire string upper or lowercase, or sometimes simple as capitalizing the first letter in the string. So before we start, one thing keep in mind that strings are immutable. What do you mean by immutable? This means that anytime we modify the string, it creates a new Python object. So we have these methods that being used for the string manipulation, which is capitalized, swap case, title, lower and upper. So we will discuss each of them in our example in the next slide. So first example, we have a string, I am learning Python. So capitalized method will capitalize the first character in the string. This is extremely helpful when you need to capitalize the first letter in the sentence. The second method is title method. Title method capitalizes the first character of every word in the string. Let's say you have a string first name and last name, and then you want to do a title method and wants to capitalize the first name and the last name in the string, you can use this method. So if you want to capitalize the entire string, then we need to have upper method. So upper method will capitalize the entire string. Similarly, we will have lower method, which will basically convert your uppercase into lowercase. So we have something which is, for example, x is a variable and we will use here as swap case. So swap case, which will be making the entire string into capitalized. So that means whatever we have in lowercase, it will turn that into uppercase. For example, we have router 1 and now we will use swap case in this. So the R will be turned into lower and the other O-U-T-E-R, which is in lower, turn into uppercase. So if we are using capitalize method, we'll capitalize the first character in the string. This is extremely useful when you need to capitalize the first letter in the sentence, or if you need to capitalize the first character in the host name. The title method capitalizes the first character of every word in a string. Let's say if you have a first name and the last name, you will use title method to capitalize the first name and the last name in the string. The upper method is basically used when I need to manipulate a data that's for a database or for a host name, password. So where I need the case to be in all caps. Similarly, we have lower method, which allows to change the case of entire string to be in lowercase. Similarly, for example, if we will ask an user to input a value and the user input the value in all caps, but the Python code needs everything in lowercase. So in this, lower method will help to change the string manipulation and change that uppercase to the lower one. Then we have swap case, converts all the upper characters to the lower one, all lower letters to the upper one, and return the string. So this is all about the string manipulation and what is the data type that we have, what is primitive, non-primitive. In next video, we'll discuss about few more string methods. We'll deep dive in some more labs in order to give the example where we will use those methods. Thank you for watching this video.